And then funnily enough, I was like, the first artwork I ever sold was a skateboard hat. You know, I used to paint Rob Roscop painter's caps. I'd put them on a pot and then get my Pentel markers and like do skateboard art on them and sell them to kids in high school. And I was like, oh, that's like my first artwork I ever sold. I didn't know artist was a job. Like when I grew up, artist wasn't a job. There was no art world, you know, like there is now. Art just means like you imagine for a living. Like we're professional imaginers. To be good at anything, you have to imagine new things. I've always been attracted to new ideas. The new ideas haven't yet had time to like exclude people. Most systems require processes that work more efficiently if people are not individual. That is the tension of society. For all the off-brand kids who want to be artists and skateboarders and musicians, how do you carve a space out for yourself in that respect? And so for me, it started out, I think, with that. Yeah, so this artwork starts out as an all-white American flag that I tie-dye using a recreation of a Confederate-era tarring solution. There's this old warning that you're not supposed to put an oily rag in a bucket, otherwise it will light itself on fire. It's called spontaneous combustion. We do that on purpose here. So I tie-dye the flag with the oil solution and then leave it in the corner of the studio, and after 2.5 to 3 hours, the flag lights itself on fire. And my artistic gesture is actually putting the fire out. Because there's a whole history of flag burning, but not much of flag extinguishing. What you see in the work is the dark spots are the tarring solution, the tan spots are the singe marks where it started to burn. And when we show it in the museum, we show it with this light, because what it does is it casts the pristine shadow of the flag on the wall. And I really talk about it as a marker of our moment. Despite the charred exterior of the times that we're living through, there's still value systems that we hold dear. As I got more advanced in the craft, I'd say, and learned more about the business part, you know, then it became like not a responsibility, but I felt, oh, if I could come up with an idea that people benefit from and are inspired from, and I'm one of the few people who can actually like have the courage to be foolish and take that risk, you know, I should be foolish and take that risk. All my projects are driven by an intention. People say, oh, that's a piece, or that's an artwork, which is great, but my projects are usually multi-year, idea-driven, and go through many, many different formats, you know. And so I did a long-term collaboration with Tommy Smith, who I saw a small photo of him giving the salute in the 1968 Olympic Games. I had a small photo taped to the corner of my iMac, and a friend walked in and said, oh, Coach Smith, you want to meet him? And I was like, oh, that's crazy. Like, I didn't know if that guy was alive, you know. And fast forward, you know, we started to make sculptures together. We made a film together, connected with President Obama in the Oval Office, and did Beats headphones. We did a bunch of really crazy things under the auspices of art. And you know, there's a whole range of work that becomes that body of work. There's so much individuality, you know, that gets articulated through art and skateboarding, and that's a valuable tool for a generation to feel that they matter, you know, in a world where people are not told that they matter. The project I'm working on now is at the Japanese American National Museum, and it is inspired by the story of my grandfather, who I'm actually named after, and his name was Akira Shiraishi, and my middle name is Akira. In a world who emasculated all Asians, the only cool thing I had was Akira the movie, ninjas on the weekends, and my grandfather, you know, who died before I got to know him. But the story is he was a legendary football player at Poly High. He got recruited to go to Occidental College, and he couldn't go because he was imprisoned in the concentration camps of 1942. So he met my grandmother in the camp. They moved to Chicago. After Chicago, they moved back to LA. So out of his house, he started this corner store called Aki's Market, where he would like serve the Chicano community, you know, Japanese community, on what was one of the most violent neighborhoods in Los Angeles. Once a week, load up the station wagon, and my grandmother and him would drive to the Belmont Plunge, the pool, and take all the well-behaved kids to swim, and then they would come back to the store and drop kids off, but then he'd give them free ice cream, you know, from the store, and then they would go along their day. But it was sort of a weekly incentive, you know, to be well-behaved and to you know, to be part of community. Only 2 photos ever taken of the store. One from the exterior and one from the interior. I used those as a starting point, and then I interviewed my grandmother, my mom, neighborhood folks, and we actually put together a map and are rebuilding Aki's Market in virtual reality. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a board based on this story, based on Akira. I'm going to find that car. I'm going to find the station wagon. We're going to load the station wagon up for people who visit the store in the museum and drive them down the street And instead of the Belmont plunge, we'll go have a skate session at the Berrics. And after the session, we'll drive back to the store in the museum and all share ice cream together.